Wow. Okay. That seems good. Audio cues? I don't know what they mean. Oh well, we'll just dive in and see. Ah. Wow. Oh my god. Act 1. Pets. Okay. My eyes were burning. Can I press spacebar? Yes. I felt like the hot coals were lying on my eyelids. I slowly opened them and attempted to heave myself up from the cold asphalt, but I failed. My whole body was heavy and my head felt like it was being squashed by a hydraulic press. After a few attempts, I finally succeeded and tried to make out where I was. The fog in my mind lifted slowly and I realized that I was in a dark alleyway. My vision was still blurry and I had trouble keeping my eyes open, but I could tell that I had never seen this place before. Slowly, my heart began to race. Was I abducted? Mugged? What happened to me? Hastily checked my body, fortunately finding no wounds. Why was I feeling this weak then? Maybe I was drugged? As I tried to recall what might have happened to me, my eyes finally focused and I could see the house in front of me. In fact, it was the only house on the street with its lights on. The dirty yellow glow shone through every single visible window. I felt some relief knowing that the tenants were awake. Perhaps they could tell me where I was. I approached the front door. It took me some searching to find the doorbell through the overgrown ivy. A deep gong rang out from within the house when I pressed it. The sound, amplified by the cold wind cutting through my shirt, made me tense up. What an odd choice for a doorbell, I thought while rubbing my upper arms to warm myself. I waited. No one answered. My mind twisted in confusion. Why was no one coming? I rang the doorbell again. Then I tried knocking. No response. No one was coming. I didn't understand. Did they forget to turn off the lights and go on vacation? As a last resort, I tried turning the doorknob and it actually opened. That worried me. Did something happen to the family living here? Perhaps I should find a phone and call the police. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the street. My heart started pounding as my body tensed up. I wanted to dash into the house, but my feet refused to move. What was that sound? Was someone out there? A picture of otherworldly monsters and armed kidnappers popped into my mind as my eyes scanned the darkness. The world was silent once more. I was still on edge, but my body slowly started to relax as I regained my composure. I decided I didn't want to find out what that was. Cautiously, I stepped through the threshold and firmly closed the door behind me. I felt an immediate lurch of guilt since I was trespassing into a stranger's home, but I'd rather face a police questioning than wander around a strange neighborhood in the middle of the night. Hello? Anyone there? No answer. The house was eerily quiet. I cautiously ventured further down the hall. Perhaps I could find a telephone. I stopped in front of one of the doors. A dim yellow light seeped silently through the bottom crack. I turned the knob. Locked. Then the next one. Also locked. They all seemed to be. I frowned. Why were the lights behind these locked doors lit? Gave me an uneasy feeling. The door at the very end of the hall was the only one that I hadn't tried yet. I grasped its handle and turned it slowly. It swung open to complete darkness. Once again, my body tensed up while my mind started to conjure horrific images. A beast with dislocated limbs and crooked teeth creeping towards me from the darkness. A floor littered with corpses and walls stained with blood. Giant spider sitting in a corner, waiting for its chance to strike. My hands shook as I reached to flick on the light. Ooh. It was an utterly ordinary bedroom. My heartbeat slowly calmed down as I realized that I seemed to be safe. I felt almost silly getting scared at nothing. Quick search yielded nothing but barren, dusty shelves. The bed was the only meaningful object present. Slowly but surely, a wave of fatigue washed over me. Dude, you can't go to sleep in a stranger's house. With my adrenaline rush fading away, I found that I was more exhausted than I realized. Like a worm worming its way into an apple, a single thought slowly invaded in my mind. I had to sleep. Trying to fight it made it worse, as if some outside power was affecting me. Sleeping in a stranger's bed in a stranger's home was the last thing I wanted to do right now, but it was soon the only thing I could think of as my consciousness faded. I had to sleep. The world turned dark and the soft voices of the bed pulled me deeper and deeper into the black abyss. Ooh. I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. Is it daytime? My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare. I couldn't remember it anymore, but I must have been horrifying. Chills were still running down my spine. It was just a dream, just a nightmare, nothing more. After calming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. But I was more confident that I'd be able to find help now that it was daytime. I left the bedroom to retry the doors, just in case. Still locked. I just wanted to go home and take a shower. I smelled my clothes, and they indeed had started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I'd be better off out the streets now that it was day, even if I was still missing my wallet. I left the house for the bright sunlight. That's so weird. You just wake up, sleep in some random person's house, and then you just leave the next day. The back street didn't seem so bad anymore. I found it to be rather cozy and quaint. I made my way down the path until I heard the faint sound of conversation in the distance. A weight was lifted from my heart when I first glimpsed people walking around in the pedestrian area. There weren't too many of them, though, and as I looked around, I got the feeling that it was a rather small town. Trees and flowers were planted at regular intervals, which gave it more of a rural atmosphere. It didn't matter. I could finally ask for help. "Excuse me, could you tell me where I am?" The woman blinked at my approach. She frowned and scowled in my general direction. "This is... Kajamith?" She looked uncomfortable talking to me, so I thanked her and let her be. Kajamith? I'd never heard of a town like that before. How did I end up here? The thought of being somewhere I didn't recognize scared me. How was I supposed to get back home if I didn't have the slightest idea where to go? I took a deep breath to calm myself. My next best bet would be asking someone to allow me to make a call from their mobile phone. I approached an older man in a business suit. "Excuse me, may I use your phone? I'm a bit lost and I would like to call a friend of mine so he can pick me up." His lips curled into a grimacing frown. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry." I approached person after person, but no luck. No one wanted to lend an unkempt, half-dressed stranger their phone. As I made my way through the side streets, I overheard two elderly women. "I heard of some violent incidents recently. Most got away with just a flesh wound, saying that they were attacked by someone or something." "Yeah, I heard that too. I wonder if it has anything to do with the pet disappearances. I heard of another cat that hadn't come back in several days." Ooh, look at that. I was so focused on the conversation that I almost ran into a girl. I mumbled an apology until I realized she had approached me on purpose. Hi. You need to call someone, right?" She extended her hand and offered me her phone. "How did you know?" "People have been talking about you. We've had some violent crimes here recently. Everyone is a little on edge. Many pets have been getting sick. Some say someone has been poisoning them." She nervously shuffled her feet and glanced away. "Thank you. It won't take long." I took her phone. It was a red flip phone with a small panda hanging from a strap. The top power read May's phone. Her background was set to a side view picture of herself in a pedestrian area that looked oddly familiar. I'm wondering if I can... Oh, that's so smart. There's like a little thing and you can fold back the page. I can save? Oh, nice. It said something about... Let's see what this does. Close menu. I wonder if it reads it or something. I wonder what audio cues are. It struck me as a bit odd that she was using a picture of herself But who was I to judge? I brushed that thought aside and dialed a friend's number. But the call didn't go through. Oh, that's audio cues. Okay. We don't need that. Maybe this phone was turned off. His phone. Tried my parents' house phone, then my job's front desk, then my boss's personal cell. Each time the call failed. I was sure I had the right numbers. Maybe the phone had a bad connection? Seems like the calls won't connect for some reason. Maybe we'll have more luck trying a landline. My phone does act up sometimes. You might be right. Still, thank you a lot. Now the SFX thing is just stuck. I didn't want to hold her any longer, so I gave her her phone back and wandered off with a rushed farewell. Leaving that way may have been a bit rude, but I was too frustrated to care. I just wanted to look for another way to get in contact with someone I knew. It occurred to me that I should have asked her for directions to the police station. I turned to look for her, but she already vanished. As I made my way through town, I could now definitely feel the tension in the air. She was right. Everyone was on edge. While I was passing by an alleyway, something caught my eye. They were too big to be rats. Oh, there's something there. Could really make out anything other than an eerie glowing eyes. Maybe it was a cat gang searching the trash for food. Apropos food, I was starving. But I couldn't possibly just ask random people to feed me, and since my wallet was missing, I didn't have any money on me to buy something. Though there were oddly tempting looking plants growing nearby. As I stared at them, I felt a pull. Their strange appearance hypnotized me, and without me noticing, my feet inched closer and closer and closer. Ooh. Oh, hey. Didn't want to do that. Oh! My mouse is moving for me! I don't want to eat them, but it keeps going to eat them. It's moving on its own. Okay, let's try and hit don't eat them. I can't do it! No! I have to eat them. I can't click it. Oh, maybe if I... Yes, I did it. What was I thinking? It didn't matter how hungry I was. They may be poisonous. But my hunger was beginning to gnaw at my insides. My vision grew blurry. Who knew how long it's been since I've eaten? Whoa. Suddenly I collapsed and the world around me vanished. I beat the system. Yeah. It was dark when I awoke. It seemed like no one bothered to help me. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. My whole body was paralyzed from hunger. Something was shuffling by my ear. I felt the sniffing of an animal. Perhaps one of those cats I saw earlier. I couldn't bring myself to look. It lost interest and walked past me towards the plant. I heard more follow. As they padded into view, I noticed that something was off about them. It must have been my mind playing tricks on me. My hunger was overwhelming. Something about their bodies was wrong. They started to eat the plants. They were smacking rather loudly and made unnatural, flashy sounds. Every now and then, one would pause and give off a low growl that didn't at all sound like a cat, more like a slightly higher-pitched bear growl. After a while, the sounds diminished, and I felt their presence vanish. I gathered my strength and forced myself to my feet. What just happened? What were those creatures? The violent crimes that I had heard about earlier popped into my mind. My hands began to shake slightly. What would have happened if I hadn't been paralyzed, and if they had noticed that I was still alive? Most house lights were still lit. I mustn't have been out for long. Once again, my body gave off a deep growl. It was as if my stomach was eating itself. I had to get some food or else I was in danger of collapsing again. Being as desperate as I was, I approached the next best house and knocked. I was surprised when the door actually opened. Oh, cute! Hi there, come on in. How nice of you to visit. Before me stood a fashionably dressed woman with a big smile on her face. At first glance, she seemed welcoming, but her movement was rather stiff and almost mechanical, as if they'd been practicing over and over. The hat, scarf, and bag around her shoulders suggested that she was just about to leave. Oh, the bag? Don't worry about it. I just think it suits me, so I've gotten used to wearing it around the house. Seems like she noticed my confused look, but seems unpractical to dress like this at home, but I guess she was very conscious about her appearance. Now come in. Everyone's already inside. What? Do we know each other? She took another, more thorough look at me and seemed to realize that we did, in fact, not know each other. Ah, you must be a new neighbor. I'm Sabrina. Come in. She disappeared before I could correct her. I hesitantly followed her inside. On my way in, I saw a food bowl near the entrance with some of the strange-looking plants in it. Oh. She'd been feeding those to her pet. I peeked after Sabrina into the living room. A man leapt to his feet as he saw me and stretched his big hand out to me. His coat suggested that he was active in a medical or scientific field and that he had maybe gotten here right after work. His other arm hung down limply. Yeah. Looks like something's wrong with that arm. Hey there, it's nice to meet you. I'm Frederick. How you doing? Okay, this screen is very white. I reciprocated him, his firm handshake, and he cheerfully gestured me to take a seat behind him. To my surprise, the girl who had helped me earlier was here as well. I believe her name was May. She gave me a small wave. It's starting to feel like a festivity. We should have neighborhoods get-togethers like these more often. All right, this is... She turned and frowned in my direction while trying to remember a name she hadn't asked me for. Scott. I'm Scott. Right, Scott. He moved in nearby recently, I think, so I thought we should invite him as well. Certainly. Nice to see you. No, I'm not really... Oh, right, food. Give me a second. She rushed into the kitchen and came out with steaming dishes of food. I could make out different kinds of meat, baked potatoes, and more. My stomach gave off a deep growl and my mouth began to water. Any thought of honesty about my origin was gone. The other visitors started piling food onto their plates and I followed suit. As I devoured it and life came back to my body, I let my eyes wander over to the others. Everyone seemed to be rather tense, especially Sabrina and Frederick. Their movements were rather stiff. Every now and then they threw glances at each other's way. Glances that seemed to indicate mistrust. Their eyes. Sabrina seemed to especially be eyeing the cup that Frederick was drinking out of. Every now and then, when they'd notice each other's looks, they'd put on a fake smile. May seemed like she hadn't planned to be here in the first place. Was she just dragged into it like I was? As I was cleaning my plate of his scraps, something important flashed into my mind. Excuse me, would you mind if I used your phone? Sabrina tisked. I'm afraid I don't have one. I never cared for those buggers. She looked over to Frederick. Maybe he can use yours. Of course. I can show you to my house once we're ready to go. I gave off a sigh of relief and thanked Frederick. He waved his hand in the air. No problem at all. Please excuse me for one moment, though. He shuffled out of the room, presumably towards the bathroom. All right, I'll make some more tea. She scooped up Frederick's cup and left me alone with May. I cleared my throat and nodded in her direction. Thank you again for lending me your phone. I did appreciate that. You're welcome. I hope you'll have more luck with the landline. Yeah, I hope so too. I guess that was the end of the conversation. Perhaps she felt uncomfortable speaking to a weird-smelling stranger. I'm going to go wash my dishes. And there she went. The other two were taking quite a while. Ooh. I used the opportunity to let my eyes wander around the room. The walls were dressed with paintings of all kinds, pictures of nature, as well as more abstract drawings. A fancy-looking framed piece of paper and a photograph that was standing on the drawer beneath them caught my eye. The former seemed to be an art degree, and the latter a picture of Frederick and Sabrina when they were younger. They were standing somewhere that could be a university campus. Both had a genuine smile on their face. It seemed like their friendship went back quite a while. Oh. Hi. Whoa. She sneaked behind me. I thought I had a clear view of the kitchen entrance. I think I heard some rumbling coming from downstairs. It'd probably be good if you check out in case Sabrina hurt herself. Well, she has been gone for quite a while. Maybe something did happen to her. Perhaps I should take a look. I felt May's eyes follow me to the basement. Squinted down the stairs. It was almost pitch black. I swallowed back my nerves and carefully crept down the steps. Maybe I should have called out to Sabrina, but something told me not to. I managed to reach the bottom stairs and peeked around the corner. There I saw her, kneeling by lamplight in front of a large cage. A basket of the strange plants set beside her. There, it's alright. Take a good sniff of the cup. We need to hurry, okay? I know that he's growing one too. Everyone is. Everyone wants to get rid of the competition. We need to hurry. She held Frederick's cup to the bars. Something in her voice disturbed me. Whatever was going on, I wanted no part of it. I returned to the living room as quietly as I could. Oh, there you are, all ready to go? Upon hearing Frederick's loud voice, I jumped. What I had seen in the basement made me a bit anxious. I took a quick look around and saw that May was already gone. Sure, I'm ready. Leaving already? I just made some more tea. I turned to see Sabrina standing in the living room entrance with a put-on smile. Ah, sorry, dear. I'm just not young enough to stay out late like we used to. She put on a playful pout. Aw, you do wound me. Come by again. You know we're welcome anytime. You're welcome. We bid our farewells and set out into the cold night. I was glad to leave. What I had seen was still nagging on my mind. Frederick might be in danger. I had to tell him. I hesitated. How was I supposed to tell him when I myself wasn't sure what I had seen? I collected myself and went for it. To my surprise, he wasn't nearly as upset as Sabrina as I thought he would be. He actually seemed to be more upset at me. I think you shouldn't have snooped around in someone's house who invited you over. I was left perplexed. What just happened? I thought I was warning him, but instead I've been scolded like a child. His face relaxed and he gave me his usual smile. Seemed slightly pained this time. I suppose there's been no harm done. Perhaps he just didn't believe me. I couldn't blame him. I noticed more and more vacant houses as we crept through town. Jesus. Some were boarded up. It's a lot of reading. Doors had been left wide open. Oh, why are there so many empty houses here? These houses have been vacant for a while now. You need not worry. I was sure I passed by here earlier, but I didn't notice any abandoned buildings back then. They couldn't have left so suddenly in just half a day, could they? An uneasy feeling started to fester inside of me. Here we are. We stopped before a house that looked much like every other house in this town. He stepped inside. I hesitated at the entrance before trailing behind him. Come on in. No need to be shy. Do you want something to drink? No, thanks. Frederick hesitantly grunted and let me down a hallway. I only wanted to use the phone and get out. All the weirdness of the day had me on edge. But what if I still couldn't reach anyone? Where would I go? I was balancing a fine line between hope and despair, and the phone call would probably be what would topple me in either direction. All right, here you are. Phone had a cord attached to the receiver. It seemed rather old-fashioned, but at least they had buttons instead of a rotary dial. Ooh. I tried a number. Am I doing something wrong? There's no dial tone. Oh, no. Let me see. He took the receiver from my hand and pressed a few buttons. He let out a disappointed sigh. Not again. Those damn rodents keep getting to my cables. I'll go take a look at it. Feel free to make yourself at home. In case you get thirsty, he fetched a small bottle of soda from the kitchen, gave it to me, and went to the basement. It seemed like I wouldn't be able to leave quite so soon. Once I held the drink in my hand, I did start to go thirsty. Oh, what should we do? Book it. Take a look around. Snoop? I kind of want to snoop, yeah. Save? That's a good idea. Take a look around. Study. Entering Frederick's study felt like I was crossing a line. After all, he had invited me into his home, and he was trying to help me. But my curiosity overwhelmed me. I wondered what that thing in Sabrina's basement was, and maybe I could find answers here. I took a look at the table to see what he was working on. A flipped over picture frame and an open journal grabbed my attention. I decided to sneak a peek at the picture and was surprised to find a photograph of Sabrina and Frederick. They looked older than in the picture that I had seen at Sabrina's place, but still seemed to be good friends. It depicted them in the park as they were having a picnic. A canvas was set up nearby. Why was it lying around, face down? Perhaps he just hadn't had the time to hang it up yet. I turned my attention to the journal. His writing was messy, but I would probably be able to decipher it with some effort. What should I do? Take it. Take it. Normally I wouldn't steal, but this couldn't be further from a normal situation. I had no idea when he'd come back and how much time I had to read it. As I picked up the book, something fell out of it. I was startled by the sound and froze. Slowly I picked it up and curiously took a look at it. It was a small key, possibly for a mailbox or a drawer. While wondering about where the key could fit, I suddenly heard steps that were coming closer and closer. My heartbeat accelerated and, in a panic, I hastily put the key and the notebook into my pocket while quickly exiting the room. Alright, all done. I jumped. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. No, it's fine. Good thing you didn't catch me snooping. The phone should be working now. Feel free to give it a try. I'll give you some space. Call me when you're done. He took the bottle I had drunk from earlier and left through the hallway. I had an odd sense of déjà vu. I shook it off and started dialing some numbers. They were the same that I already tried on May's mobile phone. Once again, they failed to connect. How could that be? I was 100% certain that they were correct. Tried all the numbers of friends, family, and even work colleagues I could think of, until finally, yes, hello? It was a woman's voice that I didn't recognize. I was certain that I had dialed the number of one of my work colleagues. Excuse me, isn't this Tom's telephone number? I don't know who that is. Are you another scam caller? Don't call me again. She hung up. All right, something was definitely wrong here. It might be best to talk to Frederick and see if he could help me somehow. Maybe he had a clue as to how I could get back home. I crept down the hall. He went this way, right? I began to hear some murmuring. A steady chill ran down my back. A sound was coming from the basement. The old floorboards squealed beneath my toes. I saw flickers of a weak light coming from down the steps. I took them as gently as I could as I held a hand over my mouth to quiet my breath. I reached the bottom and turned a corner. It was just like before. Frederick knelt before a big cage, a small lamp next to him, and held something up to the bars. He hissed to whatever was inside. Yes, you have the scent now, don't you? We must take care of this one tonight. He's curious. He will find the secret much faster than the others. No. We can't have him make something like you, too. It's kill or be killed in this town. My stomach dropped out from underneath me as I heard the horrible scraping from inside the cage. I took a step back, bumping into a wall. Before I could react, I accidentally switched on the main light. The sudden flood of white blinded me for a moment. Once my eyes adjusted, the first thing I saw was it. There it is! It's eating the plants. Frederick was screaming at me, but I could barely think about him. I couldn't look away from that creature. It was cowering inside a dirty cage that seemed to be too small for it. It had features of a human, but I could also see some elements that were distinctly dog-like. Its mouth was way too big, and inside of it was filled with seemingly randomly set teeth, or at least something that resembled teeth. Worst of all, though, were the enormous eyes staring right back at me. Frederick fumbled with the lock on the cage. My feet finally began to move. I ran out of the house and into the streets. All the while, one thought was frantically running through my head. I had to get out. I had to get away from this demented town. With this thought clouding my mind, I hadn't realized that I had exited town already. I was now on a big grassy plain. Breathing heavily and with fear flooding my mind, I had almost not noticed how heavy my legs had become. Soon I was struggling to stay on my feet and my vision slowly darkened from exhaustion and panic. I wanted to look back to see how close the monster was, but I was too afraid of seeing it right behind me. I gathered my courage and quickly glanced behind me, and to my surprise, it wasn't following me. I didn't know if it had ever followed me in the first place, but it seemed like Frederick wanted to send it after me to kill me. Realizing that I was safe for now, I stopped. My legs were numb and I almost gave in, but I managed to keep standing. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. It couldn't be real. There was no way to explain what I had seen, and every inch of my body repulsed the idea of such a monster existing. But I had seen it with my own 2 eyes. What if it was just a raccoon or something? I needed to rest, but stopping could be risky. I feel like we could take a break, but it's probably best to just keep going, right? Take a break. Read the book. Oh, yeah, maybe. Audio voices, press V. Self-voicing enabled.
Continue on. Take a break.
Oh. Take a break.
I should really take a quick break to make sure that I wouldn't collapse along the way.
Okay, this is good. Now I can my voice can take a break. Take a break.
So I sat down for a bit and kept lookout for the monster. After catching my breath, I suddenly remembered the journal. Maybe this would be a good time to take another peek inside. Self-voicing disabled.
Read it. A small peek wouldn't hurt. Might find some clue as to what the thing was. I opened it to the very beginning and began to read. I discovered the cause of the pet disappearances. No one was stealing them or killing them. They just changed. I installed a GPS chip on my own dog and followed it around to see what was going on, just to discover it eating one of those odd-looking plants. I tried to stop it, but it growled at me. Never had I seen it act that way before. There was nothing I could do but let it finish. I took one of those plants with me to study it. Not too long after that, I noticed that my dog had changed. It was a bit bigger and its hair was falling out in great quantities. It had also started to bark at me, seemingly for no reason. I tried a bit of the plant myself, hoping to see why it was so drawn to it, but I found the taste nearly unbearable. He ate it. I set the journal down. I thought I had just heard a sound, jerked my head around to find the source, but nothing. Maybe it was just my imagination, or maybe it was time to keep moving. I want to read more, but... Save. Keep going? Okay. It was too risky. I should keep moving. Hell knows what the monster would do to me if it found me. I continued on at a slower pace this time, and soon came to a small but quickly flowing river. It wasn't a good night to get my clothes wet, but it looked small enough for me to jump over with a running start. I wasn't the athletic type, but I managed to leap over the gap. Suddenly, my feet staggered. A wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my back. It was as if something had stabbed me. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. Ooh, I could feel a presence near me. The monster? Frederick? Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. Shit. Ooh. You found a key? Wait. Oh, it closes. Huh? Usually you'd be sent straight to the title screen, but since the goal of this demo is to gather some valuable feedback, I hope you won't mind if I bother you real quick. Survey. Click on the text to open the link in the browser tab. Okay, let me see. My only feedback would be that the game is too white. It kind of hurts your eyes if you're light sensitive. They might want to consider like making it gray or something. How much did you enjoy the game overall? 5. Very fun. What do you think of the writing? It probably needs to be proofread, because it wasn't perfect. Proofread by native speaker. Well, it's not that bad. What do you think of the art? Amazing, but too much white. Maybe a darker mode? I'm actually doing feedback right now. Okay. I gave them my feedback. So that was actually door 1. So door 3 is still closed, I think. Yeah. So there's this story, and then this. But we also got a key. I kind of want to... I wonder if we go through it and then skip repeating text, how quickly we could maybe make some other choices. Oh, the key might be for door 2. Yeah, maybe. What's a good idea? What would you do differently? How about you eat the plant? Let's see if we... Let's see if we skip repeating text, how quickly we would get through it. Because I am kind of curious. Oh, it starts here this time. Oh, that was quick. Oh. Well, we didn't see any of that. I couldn't really think while hungry, and who knew how long it's been since I've eaten, so it was probably either this or starving. I dug in. It didn't even taste that bad. Kinda grassy, but edible. Although it grew harder and harder to chew with every bite, something red dripped onto the ground. I soon realized that a liquid was coming out of my mouth. I couldn't tell if it was blood or the plant's juices. More started to pour out as I panicked and tried to figure out what was going on. While feeling around my mouth, I realized that it had become totally numb. Suddenly, a fleshy chunk fell into the red pool that had started to form before my feet. Was that my tongue? My vision became blurry and my stiff body hit the cold ground. It was dark when I woke up again. I could make out that I was still lying next to the plants. It seemed like no one bothered to help me. Tried to get up, but I couldn't. My whole body was paralyzed. I felt a sudden sting traveling from my head to my feet, and the pain grew by the second. Something was happening to me. Oh. My hand. It was bending in weird ways. Not just my hand, my whole body. It was warping. It seemed like it couldn't handle the transformation. My body writhed, snapped into... Oh. Okay. What should we do? Let's see if we play a good boy, see what happens. I didn't think he would be happy with me poking around, considering how he felt after I told him about Sabrina. Not wanting to test his kindness, I waited. All done. Didn't mean to scare you, it's fine. Phone should be working now. Then we try a bunch of numbers. Okay. So we check anyway. So this is the same. Oh, I only now noticed like his bottom jaw is like split into 2 parts. What if we don't stop this time and like keep going? Oh, I just passed out. I didn't read the journal. Oh, right, of course. So you just run away and pass out. Do you think we could have done anything different? I guess we could maybe not check in on Sabrina. You could maybe read it longer. Continue reading. I woke the next day to a piercing pain in my right arm. At first I was horrified to find that it was entirely bent out of shape. Something inside me suppressed my fear. I calmly stood to fix it. At first I thought about getting rid of it, but the pain had already subsided. I was about to flatten it by beating it with a hammer. I had lost all feeling in the limb by that point. What would people think if I went out with a bent arm? I began to look for my dog. First thing I found were large animal footprints, much too large for its paws. The kitchen had been torn apart and strange hair littered the whole house. Then I found it. Or at least something that was once my dog. I could still see the resemblance, but most of its hair had fallen out and its jaw was dislocated. It began to growl as soon as it saw me. Shortly after, it jumped on me with no provocation. It was hard to keep off with just one hand, but its teeth had fallen out, making it nearly harmless. I managed to knock it out and lock it up in the basement. Now I had definitely heard something. I felt real uneasy about this, but I didn't want to stop reading. I felt so close to figuring out something crucial. A little more couldn't hurt. I couldn't see any sign of the monster anywhere. It should be fine. Where was I? I froze up. There was definitely something near me. It was close. Way too close. I could almost feel its ragged breath on my skin. My heart was starting to race. My chest contracted into the point where I had difficulty breathing. Continue on. Let's see what happens. So we jump over the... so as soon as we jump over the river, we just game over. I wonder if there's a way out. We found key 1, though. I wonder if it's a thing where, like, playing... Like, getting a key is, like, the good outcome for the story. Maybe it's, like, a thing where... If you play all 3 and you get 3 keys, then it unlocks a new story or something. Like, maybe after these doors in the main menu, once the full game is out, maybe it's a thing of, like... Maybe it's a thing, like, when you finish these and you have 3 keys, maybe there's another door that appears with 3 locks or something. Maybe. It seems like they all lead to death. There's nothing you can do to survive this. First death didn't get us a key. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking, like, getting a key is, like, the as far as you've gotten. Like, the best ending, basically. Maybe? I wonder if they're related, too. Like, maybe the story continues with the second door, or they're linked somehow, maybe? He says he's taken a big break to concentrate on finishing university essays. Basic story structure of the third door is done. Ending of the game is already written as well, but might need to be adjusted based on the rewrites on the third door. Likely shift the release into next year. So, somewhere 2022.